Life is filled with suffering. That is an undeniable fact, and to pretend otherwise is to live in a state of delusion. People are going to face trials. They are going to be tested. They are going to be betrayed, disappointed, and hurt. Some of those wounds will come from the world around them: economic hardship, illness, the loss of loved ones. Others will be inflicted by people they once trusted. And perhaps the most insidious challenges of all will come from within, from the dark corners of the mind that whisper words of doubt, fear, and despair. And yet, despite all of this, there are individuals who stand firm. There are those who endure suffering without crumbling under its weight. They are not blind to the pain of life, nor are they immune to the hardships that everyone else faces. But they possess something rare, something vital, unshakable faith. This is not a shallow optimism or blind hope that things will simply get better on their own. It is not the naive belief that life is fair or that things will always work out in their favor. It is something far deeper, far more profound. It is a trust not in circumstances, not in other people, but in something higher, something beyond the chaos of the moment. The dangerously anointed woman understands this at her core. She does not seek a life free from difficulty because she knows that such a life does not exist. Instead, she accepts suffering as an inevitable part of existence and meets it head-on with resilience. She does not waste time complaining about why things are unfair, nor does she indulge in the self-pity that so many fall into when faced with hardship. She sees challenges not as punishments, but as opportunities. Opportunities to grow stronger, to develop wisdom, to refine herself into someone capable of withstanding even greater trials in the future. And here is the truth. Suffering will come for everyone. The question is not whether a person will suffer, but how they will respond when suffering arrives. Many collapse under its weight. They allow it to consume them, to turn them bitter and resentful. They curse their misfortune, blame others, or lose themselves in distractions that numb the pain without addressing its root. But the dangerously anointed woman chooses a different path. She refuses to let hardship define her. She refuses to let suffering be an excuse for abandoning her principles. She stands firm in faith, knowing that even when everything around her is uncertain, the foundation she stands on is unmovable. What allows her to do this? What separates her from those who are destroyed by their suffering? It is not just inner strength, though she has that in abundance. It is not mere determination, though she possesses that as well. It is her faith. Faith that suffering is not meaningless, that pain is not arbitrary, that there is purpose even in the trials she endures. This kind of faith is not developed overnight. It is forged through experience, through repeated encounters with difficulty that test her resolve and deepen her understanding of what it truly means to trust in something greater than herself. This is where many people falter. They think that faith should eliminate suffering, that belief in something higher should protect them from pain. And when hardship comes, when life does not unfold as they expected, they question everything. They ask, why me? Why is this happening? If there is justice, if there is meaning, why am I experiencing this? These are natural questions, but they are the wrong questions. The dangerously anointed woman does not ask, why me? She asks, what must I learn? How must I grow? How can I become stronger through this? That shift in mindset is everything. It turns suffering from something destructive into something transformative. It is the difference between being broken by hardship and being refined by it. And this is not mere philosophy. It is practical, tangible, real. Because when someone embraces this way of thinking, they no longer see trials as interruptions to their life, but as integral parts of their journey. They recognize that every great individual in history, every person who has ever done something meaningful, has faced suffering, and it was their response to that suffering that defined them. This is true in all areas of life. The greatest leaders, the most influential thinkers, the strongest individuals, all of them have endured pain, loss, and struggle. But instead of allowing those experiences to destroy them, they use them as fuel. They let their suffering teach them, mold them, shape them into something greater. The dangerously anointed woman does the same. She understands that the depth of her faith is not proven when everything is going well. It is proven in the fire, in the storm, in the darkest moments, when she has every reason to give up but chooses to stand firm instead. And that choice, because it is a choice, makes all the difference. It is easy to have faith when life is comfortable. It is easy to believe in meaning and purpose when everything is going according to plan. But true faith is revealed in adversity. It is revealed in the moments when there are no easy answers, when the future is uncertain, when everything in the natural world says to despair, yet she chooses to trust anyway. This kind of faith is rare because it is costly. It requires a willingness to endure pain without losing sight of truth. It demands perseverance when quitting would be far easier. It means refusing to let bitterness take root, even when injustice seems overwhelming. But for those who possess it, for those who cultivate it, it is unshakable. It is the foundation that cannot be destroyed, no matter how fierce the storm. And so the question remains, how will you respond when trials come? Will you allow suffering to define you, to weaken you, to strip you of purpose? Or will you stand firm, embrace the difficulty, and choose to let it refine you into someone stronger? The answer to that question determines everything. Words have power. That is something people often fail to grasp fully. They think that speech is just noise, just a collection of sounds strung together to communicate basic ideas. But that is a dangerously shallow understanding. Words shape reality. They carve out order from chaos. They establish meaning, define identity, and build civilization. And just as words can create, they can also destroy. They can build people up, but they can also tear them down. The way a person speaks, the authority with which they deliver their message, determines whether they influence or are ignored. Now consider a person whose words command attention, not because they shout, not because they demand to be heard, but because when they speak, something within the listener is moved. They speak with precision, with conviction, with truth. Their words resonate at a level deeper than mere intellect. They cut to the very soul. This is not just about speaking well. It is not about charisma or eloquence, though those things may play a role. It is about authority, and authority does not come cheaply. It is not something that can be faked, at least not for long. True authority in speech comes from something far deeper than talent or confidence. It comes from alignment with truth. A dangerously anointed woman carries this kind of authority. When she speaks, people listen, not because they are obligated to, not because she forces them to, but because her words carry weight. They carry substance. And that substance does not come from mere intellect or knowledge. It comes from experience, from wisdom, from deep alignment with what is true and what is right. She does not waste words. She does not speak for the sake of speaking. When she speaks, it is with intention, with clarity, and with impact. This is crucial because the world is drowning in words that mean nothing. Everywhere people turn, they are bombarded with information, opinions, and noise. Social media, television, endless conversations filled with empty rhetoric. None of it carries the authority to cut through the fog of confusion. But when someone speaks with true authority, it is different. It is undeniable. It silences the noise, not through volume, but through the sheer force of its truth. That is the kind of voice the dangerously anointed woman possesses. But here is something critical to understand. Authority in speech is not something one simply decides to have. It is not a matter of willpower or self-confidence. It is earned. It is forged in the fire of discipline, suffering, and deep engagement with truth. If someone tries to speak with authority without having walked the path that grants it, their words ring hollow. They may speak loudly, they may sound intelligent, but people will not listen, not truly. There will be something missing, something that cannot be faked. And what is that missing piece? Authenticity, experience, a direct confrontation with suffering, and the lessons that come from it. The dangerously anointed woman speaks with authority because she has lived what she says. She has endured, she has learned, she has wrestled with truth, with hardship, with her own weaknesses, and she has come out stronger. Her voice carries weight because it is not theoretical, it is real, and people can sense that. They may not be able to articulate it, but they know when they are in the presence of someone whose words are backed by something substantial. And so this is not just about speaking with confidence. Confidence alone is not enough. There are plenty of confident people who speak nonsense. What matters is that a person's words align with truth and that they have lived in such a way that their words carry the force of reality. When a dangerously anointed woman speaks, she does not simply share opinions. She delivers something deeper. She speaks from a place of conviction that is rooted in something unshakable, and that is why her voice cannot be ignored. She does not need to demand attention. She does not need to manipulate or force people to listen. People listen because there is something undeniable in her words. They feel it. They know that what she is saying is not just talk, it is truth. But understand this. This kind of authority does not come without a cost. It requires discipline. It requires suffering. It requires a relentless pursuit of truth and a refusal to be swayed by comfort or convenience. The world is filled with people who speak but have nothing to say. The dangerously anointed woman is not one of them. She refuses to engage in meaningless talk. She refuses to water down truth for the sake of acceptance. She speaks what needs to be spoken, even when it is unpopular, even when it is difficult. And so the question is, when you speak, do your words carry weight? Do people listen because they recognize truth in what you say? Or are your words lost in the noise, blending in with the endless stream of meaningless chatter? If the latter is true, then the path is clear. Pursue truth relentlessly. Discipline yourself. Refine your words. Speak only what is necessary, what is valuable, what is aligned with what is right. Because in a world filled with meaningless words, those who speak with true authority will always stand apart. Strength is not optional. That is a hard truth, but it is a necessary one. Life is difficult. It is filled with suffering, hardship, and betrayal. And those who are not strong will be crushed under the weight of it. They will break, they will retreat, and they will be at the mercy of forces they do not understand and cannot control. This is not just physical strength, though that is important. It is not just intellectual strength, though that too has its place. It is the kind of strength that allows a person to stand firm when everything around them is falling apart. It is the kind of strength that allows a person to endure without losing themselves, to face resistance without crumbling, to meet opposition without backing down. The dangerously anointed woman possesses this kind of strength. She is not fragile. She is not easily shaken. She does not fall apart when things do not go her way, nor does she give in to despair when faced with difficulty. She stands even when standing is costly. She persists even when persistence means suffering. And she does not allow fear to dictate her choices. This is not mere stubbornness. It is not about being defiant for the sake of defiance. It is about knowing what is right, knowing what must be done, and doing it regardless of the cost. There is something rare, something almost intimidating about a person who cannot be easily broken. Most people avoid conflict. They avoid hardship. They seek the path of least resistance, hoping to glide through life without encountering anything too painful or too difficult. But that is not how the world works. That is not how life is structured. Hardship will come, resistance will come, and those who are not prepared for it will be destroyed by it. Strength is not something that can be borrowed when it is needed. It must be cultivated long before the moment of testing arrives. The dangerously anointed woman understands this. She does not wait until disaster strikes to decide whether she is strong. She builds that strength daily. She disciplines herself. She does not allow herself to become weak, either physically, mentally, or spiritually. She understands that resilience is a habit, a muscle that must be exercised if it is to grow. And she refuses to let herself become the kind of person who collapses under pressure. But strength is not just about endurance. It is also about the capacity to act. Many people endure suffering, but they do so passively. They survive, but they do not fight back. They do not stand up against injustice. They do not confront evil. They do not push back against the forces that seek to tear them down. The dangerously anointed woman does. She does not merely withstand opposition. She meets it head on. She does not simply endure hardship. She overcomes it. She does not just exist in a world filled with suffering. She changes it. And this is why she is dangerous. Not in a reckless or destructive way, but in the sense that she cannot be controlled. She cannot be intimidated into silence. She cannot be pressured into conformity. She cannot be manipulated into submission because she has built herself into someone who is unshakable, someone who is not swayed by popular opinion or fleeting emotions, someone who knows who she is and what she stands for. That kind of strength is terrifying to those who seek control. It disrupts systems that rely on fear. It challenges those who benefit from the weakness of others. A strong woman, truly strong, not just in appearance but in substance, is a force to be reckoned with. She does not need permission to exist. She does not need validation from those who do not understand her mission. And she certainly does not seek approval from those who would rather see her remain silent. But here is something crucial to understand. Strength is not about aggression. It is not about being hard for the sake of being hard. It is about being disciplined enough to know when to fight and when to be still. It is about being wise enough to know what battles are worth fighting. And it is about being secure enough to stand alone if necessary. The dangerously anointed woman is not strong because she wants power. She is strong because she understands that without strength, everything that matters can be taken from her. And so she prepares. She does not let herself be lulled into complacency. She does not allow comfort to make her weak. She sharpens her mind. She strengthens her body. She fortifies her spirit. She learns, she grows, she faces her own weaknesses so that she can overcome them. And she does not apologize for any of it, because the world does not need more weak people. It does not need more individuals who fold at the first sign of difficulty, who avoid responsibility, who refuse to stand up for what is right because they are afraid of conflict. It needs people who are strong, people who are willing to face hardship with courage, people who can endure suffering without losing themselves. And that is exactly what she has become. So the question is, will you choose to be strong, or will you wait until hardship comes and hope that you can endure it? Will you cultivate resilience now, or will you find yourself unprepared when the storm arrives? Because the storm will come. And when it does, only those who have built themselves into something solid, something unshakable, will remain standing. Order is necessary. Without it, life descends into chaos. And chaos is a dangerous force. It erodes stability, undermines purpose, and leaves people lost in a sea of uncertainty. Most people do not understand just how fragile order is. They assume that life will naturally arrange itself into something meaningful, that the structures holding everything together will simply remain intact without effort. But that is not true. Order must be established, maintained, and defended, or it will dissolve. The dangerously anointed woman understands this. She knows that order is not something that simply happens. It is something that must be created, and she does not wait for someone else to create it for her. She takes responsibility. She understands that if her life is to be structured in a way that is meaningful, if her actions are to produce something of real value, then she must impose order on the chaos around her. She does this through discipline, through clear thinking, through decisive action. She does not drift aimlessly. She does not surrender control of her own existence to the whims of fate or to the influence of those who do not have her best interests at heart. She determines her path. This is not a simple thing. The world is complex, filled with competing demands, distractions, and conflicting values. It is easy to get lost. It is easy to let disorder creep in, to become overwhelmed by everything that calls for attention, to lose sight of what matters most. That is why so many people feel anxious, uncertain, and directionless, because they have not taken the time to establish structure in their own lives. They have not decided clearly and deliberately what kind of person they want to be, what principles they will uphold, and what goals they will pursue. And when those things are undefined, life inevitably becomes chaotic. But the dangerously anointed woman does not allow that to happen. She sets things in order. She does not ignore problems, hoping they will go away. She does not allow disorder to accumulate in her life, assuming she will deal with it later. She confronts it. She takes action. She imposes structure where there is none. And in doing so, she becomes a stabilizing force, not only in her own life, but in the lives of those around her. This is an immense responsibility. People underestimate the power of a single individual who has their life in order. Someone who has clarity, discipline, and direction is a force to be reckoned with. They are not easily swayed by manipulation. They are not thrown into turmoil by every passing difficulty. They do not waste time on meaningless distractions. They move forward with purpose. And that purpose has a way of bringing order not just to their own life, but to the environment they inhabit. This is why weak and disorganized individuals are threatened by those who have their lives in order. Chaos does not like to be challenged. It seeks to expand, to spread, to pull others into its confusion. And when someone refuses to be consumed by it, when they push back against the disorder and refuse to let it dictate their existence, it makes those who are comfortable in chaos uneasy. This is why the dangerously anointed woman often faces resistance, not because she is doing something wrong, but because she is doing something right. She is asserting structure where others have allowed disorder to reign, and that is something that many people, whether consciously or unconsciously, find unsettling. But that does not stop her. She understands that maintaining order is not about pleasing everyone. It is not about avoiding conflict or seeking approval. It is about ensuring that her life and the lives of those who depend on her do not fall into meaningless chaos. She is willing to do what is necessary to keep things in order, even when it is difficult, even when it requires sacrifices, even when it means standing alone. And this is where many people falter. They assume that order will simply maintain itself. They think that once they establish some level of stability, they can stop being vigilant. But order is not something that once created remains intact indefinitely. It requires constant attention. If a person does not actively maintain it, disorder will creep back in. It happens in small ways at first, neglecting responsibilities, allowing distractions to take over, failing to set clear priorities. But over time, those small instances of disorder accumulate, and before long, everything is in disarray. The dangerously anointed woman does not allow this to happen. She is disciplined. She understands that maintaining order is an ongoing process. She does not let things slide. She does not deceive herself into thinking that she can afford to be careless. She remains vigilant, always ensuring that the structures in her life remain strong, that her priorities remain clear, and that she is actively moving toward what is meaningful and true. This is why she stands out. This is why she is powerful, because in a world where so many people are lost in chaos, she is steady. In a world where so many are aimless, she has direction. And in a world where so many are overwhelmed by disorder, she brings clarity and structure. That is no small thing. That is the foundation of leadership. That is the foundation of real influence. So the question is, have you taken responsibility for the order in your life? Have you clearly defined what matters most? Have you structured your days, your actions, your decisions in a way that aligns with your highest values? Or are you drifting, allowing chaos to take over, hoping that things will somehow arrange themselves into something meaningful? Because they will not. Order does not happen by accident. It happens because someone has the courage to establish it, to defend it, and to uphold it. That responsibility is yours, and the sooner you take it seriously, the sooner you will see the power it brings. My friends, we are living in a time when God is raising up women of faith, women who are not satisfied with an ordinary walk with Him, but who are set apart, empowered, and dangerously anointed for His work. A woman who is dangerously anointed is not defined by the world's standards. She does not seek the applause of man, nor is she swayed by fleeting trends. She is consecrated, fully surrendered to the will of God. Like Esther, she understands that she has been placed in this moment for a divine purpose. She lives with holy boldness, refusing to compromise the truth no matter the cost. She is a woman of unshakable faith. Trials come, hardships press against her, but she stands firm. The enemy may try to silence her, but her trust is in the one who holds all things together. Her prayers shake the heavens, and her praise confounds the powers of darkness. She does not live by what she sees, but by what God has spoken. When she speaks, the atmosphere shifts. She carries divine authority, not because of her own strength, but because the Spirit of the living God dwells within her. When she declares the word, it does not return void. She walks in supernatural discernment, seeing beyond the surface, recognizing truth from deception, and leading others in righteousness. And let me tell you something, this woman does not fear spiritual battles. She is clothed in the armor of God, wielding the sword of the Spirit, standing her ground when others retreat. She knows that her strength is not her own, but comes from the Lord, and she moves in power that hell cannot withstand. She is both compassionate and bold. She loves with the love of Christ, reaching out to the broken, the lost, the weary, but she does not compromise. She speaks the truth in love, even when it is unpopular. She is a voice for the voiceless, a defender of righteousness in a world that has abandoned it. And above all, she is a woman who leaves a legacy. She does not live just for herself, but she pours into the next generation. She disciples, she mentors, she raises up other women to walk in their callings. She is a mother in the faith, ensuring that the fire of God does not die with her, but continues to burn in those who come after her. My friends, God is calling forth a generation of women who will not be silent, who will not be afraid, who will not back down. He is raising up warriors, intercessors, teachers, and prophets, women who will walk in dangerous anointing, shaking the very foundations of darkness and advancing the kingdom of God. Are you one of them? Will you answer the call? Will you step into the anointing God has placed upon your life? If so, stand firm, walk boldly, and never forget, greater is He who is in you than he who is in the world. Amen. A life of deep consecration is not a trivial matter. It is not something one stumbles into by accident or something that happens passively over time. It is a deliberate, conscious decision, one that requires immense discipline, self-examination, and a willingness to sacrifice. To be set apart for a higher purpose means that every action, every word, every thought must be aligned with something greater than oneself. It demands order, structure, and a radical reorientation of one's values. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at a crossroads. One path is wide, accommodating, and filled with distractions, things that promise comfort, ease, and instant gratification. The other path is narrow, difficult, and often lonely. It demands resilience. It requires self-retreat. It calls for an unwavering commitment to truth. The dangerously anointed woman does not hesitate in her choice. She does not meander through life, drifting wherever the winds of culture or emotion may take her. She sets her feet firmly on the narrow road, understanding that though the journey will be arduous, the reward is beyond measure. But here's the thing, true consecration is not just about external behavior. It is not simply about following a set of rules or maintaining an appearance of righteousness. That kind of shallow devotion crumbles under pressure. A genuinely consecrated life is one that is transformed from the inside out. It is a life where every fiber of one's being is oriented toward the highest good. This requires a constant confrontation with oneself, an ongoing battle against complacency and deception. It means rooting out arrogance, entitlement, and the desire for power, and replacing them with humility, gratitude, and a relentless pursuit of wisdom. To live in this way is to wage war against chaos. The world is filled with distractions that pull people away from meaning and responsibility. There are infinite opportunities to waste time, to indulge in comfort, to avoid the difficult work of refining one's character. It is easy, far too easy, to let the days slip by, each one blending into the next, until one wakes up years later realizing that the life they have lived was not one of depth or purpose, but one of passive existence. The dangerously anointed woman refuses to let that happen. She recognizes the cost of a life lived without intention, and she refuses to pay that price. Instead, she submits herself to a process of rigorous self-discipline. She understands that small habits repeated over time shape the person one becomes. If she allows laziness, indulgence, or bitterness to take root in her soul, those things will grow like weeds, choking out what is good. But if she chooses instead to cultivate wisdom, patience, and integrity, those qualities will flourish. She does not seek fleeting happiness, but deep, abiding joy. She does not chase after shallow pleasures, but rather seeks fulfillment in responsibility, in service, in the pursuit of something meaningful. Now, this is not to say that consecration is easy. Quite the opposite. To be truly set apart is to invite opposition. It means standing firm in one's convictions, even when it is unpopular, even when it leads to rejection, even when it requires suffering. It means resisting the temptation to compromise, to take shortcuts, to lower one's standards for the sake of convenience. The dangerously anointed woman does not conform to the expectations of the world. She challenges them. She does not seek approval from the masses. She seeks approval from something far higher. And let's be honest, this kind of life is rare. It is much easier to go along with the crowd, to avoid difficult questions, to live in a way that is comfortable rather than in a way that is right. But the path of least resistance leads to mediocrity. It leads to a life that is unremarkable, uninspired, and ultimately unfulfilled. The dangerously anointed woman understands this. She does not settle for mediocrity. She does not shrink back from responsibility. She embraces the difficulty of the path she has chosen because she knows that anything of true value comes at a cost. She also understands that deep consecration is not a one-time decision. It is not a moment of inspiration followed by a return to old habits. It is a daily choice. Every morning she wakes up and recommits herself to the path she has chosen. She disciplines her mind, aligning her thoughts with truth. She disciplines her body, ensuring that her actions reflect her values. She disciplines her emotions, refusing to be ruled by fleeting feelings, but instead anchoring herself in what is right and good. And this discipline, this commitment, does something profound over time. It transforms her. It refines her. It makes her into someone who is strong, who is wise, who is capable of bearing the weight of responsibility. It prepares her for leadership, for influence, for impact. And it sets her apart, not in an arrogant or self-righteous way, but in a way that is undeniable. People recognize something different about her. They may not always understand it. They may even resist it, but they cannot ignore it. In the end, a life of deep consecration is not just about personal growth. It is not about self-improvement for its own sake. It is about stepping into one's purpose. It is about being equipped to make a difference, to speak truth, to stand firm in a world that desperately needs people who are willing to do so. The dangerously anointed woman knows that her life is not her own. She knows that she has been called to something greater, and so she walks the narrow road, not because it is easy, but because it is right. This is not a path for the weak. It is not a path for the indifferent. It is a path for those who are willing to embrace the challenge, to endure the difficulty, and to press forward, even when it would be easier to turn back. And so the question remains, will you walk that path? Will you embrace the call? Will you choose a life of deep consecration? Because if you do, you will find that though the journey is hard, it is worth every step.